you'll see the other totally three levels of working with the mantra is there. Because at home, if you sit and start chanting, sometimes people may feel there is something wrong. Till yesterday, she was okay. What happened to her today? So I want to share the three ways in which you can practice. As of now, only Jai has the freedom to do whatever she wants. Others are all living in a particular space. Okay, so I'll introduce you to the three ways in which we can internalize the mantra, and then whichever deems fit you can do. Okay, thank you.
Stuff and how religion needs names and forms. So I was just thinking, the way I was brought up, because my mom is a philosopher. So, like her PhD thesis for philosophy, in fact, was comparative theology. So like, she knows like about different kinds of religions and all. So we were always brought up with the idea that names and forms don't matter. There is this, great energy or formless thing which is supreme, and that's what you should believe in. So whatever name you call a god by, or whatever practice you choose to follow, that doesn't really matter. You just do whatever you want. So
Yeah, that is the stage where one moves beyond the dual nature.
yeah, so well, my mom is like that.
Yeah, as long as pain and pleasure affect us, as long as day and night matter to us, as long as death and birth matter to us, we need to be having something on the operational level.
That's true.
Yeah, once we withdraw or reach such a state where there is direct communion with the Supreme, that's what Vedanta says. There's the word communion itself is wrong to use there, because only when that is there, where is communion? Only one is there. So the Veda says the one wished and appeared as many. So when that stage is reached, again the word reached is also wrong. We mean the limitation of words. It is there. It's like inside Bombay, wherever you go, it's Bombay only. Something, that's the only thing which is there. So that is a very ultimate state. As long as, promotions, or as long as something, the mind level, we are still affected. As long as we have intellect, mind level, we need a tool. That's it. But there are some rare people who can transcend that. There's always exception. It's always a probability. It's always a probability.
Prakash, sorry, I couldn't resist the temptation after what Jay said. I am talking about my mother, who's a Sanskrit scholar. She had a different way of explaining the same to us. She says that we human beings don't have the capacity to be able to understand something which is abstract. Formless, this, that, when we explain, we human beings are not able to understand. And so we needed a form so that we could imagine at least. How do you imagine abstract? It is like, how do I explain color to a person who's blind? How do I explain taste to you? You can't explain taste. Taste is taste. This is how coffee tastes. So in that context, I think form was forced to let us, to bring it down to our level. This is how I have understood. I don't know if I'm making sense.
As long as we understand there is something, that is more than enough. And if that connect with something we have established through Bhakti Yoga, that something will, it is the job of that something. We have nothing else to do. All you need to do is to find out your connection from Geo, or Airtel. It's up to them to give you connectivity, up to you to utilize it. As long as you have got a connectivity, that there is something, that alone matters. Then the intention will ensure that something has to take us. For example, when you are a child, you just held your parents' hand because you know they are going to take you to some place. You just went and held. That's it. Our work is finished there. So how to take, where to take, all that, the source, it is the work of the source. But like how we surrender with completeness when we are a child by holding to the little finger, we can only hold the little finger when we were a child. This much only our hand is there, no? Then we actually didn't give a hoot where they are taking, what they are taking, because we don't even know to think where they are taking. So the tradition is pretty clear. Are you very clear? Is your intention clear? That is more than enough. Then when you leave it open, she or he or it, even that you don't need to define, because there is only genderless. Because of our inability to comprehend, we are calling the Supreme as the mother. Mother doesn't mean she is feminine also. That is the thing here. Female also. So we should not limit to that. We are able to relate to her that way. So each of us, when we studied Bhakti Yoga, we figured out one mode with which we connect to that source. That is more than enough. If we do that with the surrender and with completeness, it is up to them to handle it. But our intention should be very clear. That's it. If you notice, that's why we were, when we spoke in the initial days, this is only for Astika. Right now, what we are speaking, Astika is that one which understands that there is something. That something, the whole life we take to figure it out, our whole lives to figure it out. But as long as we say there is something, that much I can comprehend with my limited intellect, I think that is more than enough. Beyond that, everybody will automatically discover. It's like National Law School in Bangalore is there. That much you need to know. Then you will go to Google, you will speak to, you will make your effort because you have set your goal perfectly. So like that, your thing is, yeah, there is something, there is a connect. So up there, it will open out and unfold in time. Correct, no? Because many of us don't also understand what tradition tells. We are in samsara sagara, right? Some log is there, you are holding it. That log is made up of teak wood or it is anaconda also, we don't know. We are floating holding that log. Deciphering it, whether it is mahogany, teak or neem wood or whatever it is, our intellect has no work there. This is survival. Because we have the comfort of intellect, we are dissecting. Suppose if someone is understanding the perils, I would not say the plus and minus, the pitfalls of getting too much into the day-to-day stuff, anything comes, they will hold on. That anything is some stuff which would connect you to the higher source. Correct? You bite that and see whether it tastes like teak wood or mahogany. But if it's anaconda, you get it back. So just telling you, we have no choice. We have to just hold on to it. And one of the best available source to hold on is a mantra. There's no physical thing there. There is no japamala there. There is no meditation seat. There is no image there. Because when you travel, you don't need to give an excuse that thing is not there. That thing in the form of mantra is always there with you. In night, you have a nightmare. If we do it right, it kicks in your dream. To that level of internalization, it will happen gradually. Okay. So any observations? Can we proceed? Yeah. So now there are many ways to practice mantra. out of which we will see three ways. The first way we saw already, it's called Vachika, which is you chanted it loud. So loud chanting has many benefits. First thing, it helps us to get our pronunciation right. Second, it will never allow you to slip into the state of depression if at all you are approaching that. Generally, mantras or anything, if you notice, you sit straight and look to do. When you are watching a cricket match or when you are watching a show which you like, the alertness with which you look at it, that's the way you are approaching these processes also. So naturally, your back tends to be straight. If you notice, many of you, when I called the name, you tried to reasonably set yourself and then chant. It naturally happens. Okay, so when a depressive state or a low state happens, first thing is your head will droop. Your body, the spine will droop, the shoulder will come like this. So when you are sitting straight and doing it, it is an antidote to depression. This is the word my teacher uses. Loud chanting is an antidote to depression. And today, none of us are exempt. So much uncertainty happening around. Sometimes so much uncertainty happening in relationship, despite even there was no COVID at that time also. So as human beings, we go through this up and downs. So if loud chanting could be a non-negotiable, a 5-6 minute of loud chanting, you can hook on to that. Second, it appears that it sets the space in right way. Wherever you are, it sets it in the right way. So these are the three major ways in which loud chanting helps. First, it helps us to get our pronunciation right. Second, it never allows you to get into a depressive state. And third, it helps you to set things around also. Correct? Now, the second state is called Upamshu. Some of you here know that already. First is Vachika, means saying it loud or chanting it loud. Second is Upamshu, whisper. So, in whisper, what happens? Once your pronunciation is perfect and you want to slowly internalize, this whispering is done. The Om Shri Matre Namaha is done. That is, you are whispering the mantra to yourself. It's like a self-talk, or it helps us to start gathering our own attention. It's like if I'm saying an open secret here, you may miss it. But if suddenly, if we whisper to one person in the screen, so if I say Kishore, like that, generally the tendency is to know what was whispered. Sweet nothings it could be. It would be that today breakfast is here, idli sambar. What is your breakfast at home, Kishore? That only would have been asked. Nothing great atomic secrets would have been shared. But by nature, if some whispering happens, we become very curious. We want to know what it is. Okay. So the same whispering here, you are the one who is closest to yourself. So the whispering should be heard only by you. Some people whisper, we can go and tell them, prostrate before them and tell, boss, you better do loud chanting. Correct? So whispering means you are able to hear only to your own chant. That is whispering. Whispering helps us to gather our thoughts, helps us to enter a state of meditation. So whispering is extremely important state. Okay. Then comes the third state, wherein it's called Manasika. Is in mind. In mind. Okay. So today we will be ending the session in 5-10 minutes. I'll give you one small homework. All of you have at least one book at home, right? One book at home. Yeah. Nagaraj, you will have so many. Yeah? Your insurance things, so many books will be there. So, what you do is you randomly open a page. Not now, when you are free. Read a paragraph loud to yourself. Okay. When you read it loud, note down the time. How long it is taking for you to read it loud. Is it clear? Second step, read the same paragraph in whispering mode and note down the time. Third is just read it without moving your body or anything, just you are reading. So you will share those timings in our group today. Don't need to share the paragraph which you read, but just put the codes 40, 20, 10, whatever numbers which comes to you, you share it in the group. Okay. Uniformly, you will notice something which I don't want to tell now. But once you all share your numbers, I'll tell you what it is. Okay. Because there is a difference between chanting and meditating, which you will discover it for yourself. Because if I tell you something, your mind will have questions. How this is happening? You may think I am programming you to think that way. So now you do it yourself and you will come back with the numbers. The numbers will tell you. Is the homework clear? Any book of your choice, you take it up, read it loud. How you chanted Om Shri Matre Namaha, like that, read it loud. So when you do loud chanting, remember the Brahmari. The chant should be at the level of your regular voice or slightly more, like how you did Brahmari. In whispering, you clearly know if Vijayalakshmi is saying a mantra, Babu should not be able to hear, but she should be able to hear. See, they are sitting very close, but still, because that is the nature of Upamshu. Next is Manasika. When you do it in the mind, no throat is moving, the tongue is not moving. You are just seated and you are reading that paragraph. Same paragraph. Is it okay? So when you do these three, we will get some results. Based on the results, we will take 5-10 more minutes tomorrow and close this topic. Okay. So any observations? So why we do mantra meditation? To protect us from the vagaries of mind. When the mind is protected, you naturally tend to be mindful, so you can avoid even physical, the physical level also you will be protected. And then second, how to do, we saw 3 ways of doing it. This is what message yesterday, why and how. And we also got some ideas on what it can do to our mind. Okay. Yeah. Yes, Kishore.
Now, all the mantras can be chanted in all the 3 modes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Gayatri mantra, they say you generally chant it within your mind, right?
The exceptions are there everywhere.
Okay.
That's why that is also whispered to us. Today, thanks to Google and books, there is no secret. Okay. But even there are how to cook, how to make rasgulla is available in internet. Today, even how to assemble a bomb also is available in internet. Like that, mantra is also available. But how many of us are actually doing it? I'm not telling you to assemble a bomb, but making a rasgulla, doing something, right? So the open domain, everything is available today. When we take and practice, we can internalize. Okay. So leave those exceptional mantras. Just to take Shri Matre as an example. Okay. Thank you. Already Sri Ranjani is in half sleep now. Yes. Okay. So take care. We will, as usual, the message will be in the respective groups. We will meet accordingly. Thank you.